Check, check. Looks like I have a green light on my microphone. All right, that was pretty good. Pretty fast. Thank you. Yeah, tonight it looks a little blurred. The other night it was crystal clear. Kind of amazing. So, how's everybody doing? Everybody have a good weekend? Hey, Jamie. Apologize for being a few minutes late. I was having a little issue with my audio, but I got it straightened out. Awesome, awesome. All right, well, let's get started. I'm going to try and get everybody out of here on time tonight. So, tonight, one more night of clarity. And then I think what we'll be doing here for several weeks is just looking at the market. It's kind of the point everybody wanted to get to all along. And we'll go through pair by pair. But based on some of the things I've seen in the group, I wanted to address a few issues. Let me get my light on here. Go to my notes. All right, so I want to talk about a couple things in terms of what we're doing. And let me see which one has my... And the first thing I want to do is, let me see. This. So I want to start off tonight talking about the checkmate zone. For any of you that are brand new tonight, here for the first time, welcome. At the end, we will put up a screen. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Trinidad. Good evening, wherever you are around the globe. We'll put up a slide at the end which has some information about our group, where you could find our group on Facebook. You definitely want to be active there. I would say for a serious trader who is pursuing what I'm teaching, you will find as much in the group in terms of learning as you do in these sessions. So staying active in the groups is very, very important. They are our community, and you benefit when you post a chart. You benefit from the admins and coaches helping you. Others who are watching that and looking at that benefit. So let's say, there's 20, 100, 150 posts a week of charts, and there's a correction mentioned in some of them. Some of them are going to be, hey, spot on, good job. But let's say there's corrections in just half, so that would be 75. So you get 75 trading tips a week by just reviewing the trades that other people have posted and how the admins and coaches have remarked on it. And so, very important to stay active in the community. You're not going to learn to trade the Forex on your own. I'm just going to repeat that and repeat that. It's going to take a coaching environment, and it's going to take an interactive coaching environment where we get to see what you're doing. That's the only way we're going to be able to adjust your RAS, and RAS is the key to trading. RAS adjustment is the key to trading. You cannot adjust it yourself. You can't see it yourself. You can adjust it. You could work on programming, but the results of it you may not see because of your RAS. So it takes third party. It takes second, fourth sets of eyes. And it's correcting the mistakes that helps you learn what to do in the long term because you know what not to do. So if you're brand new, we're big into the head game here. Okay. We kind of explain what the head game is as we go along. We do it in these sessions. We do it in the Facebook group, which is why you need to plug in. Some of you who are very active and noticed there's been a couple of posts going from, the end of last week through this morning for which there's, I consider gold nuggets being dropped as comments to some questions, as comments to some posts. And if you're not looking through the posts and the comments, you're not going to catch those nuggets. RAS, not ROS, RAS, the reticular activation system. It's part of the hypothalamus part of your brain. We'll cover RAS in more detail as we move on. Just understand it's the controlling mechanism that's going to determine your success or failure. You've probably never heard about RAS in terms of trading like we're going to talk about it, especially from the old paradigm, because the old paradigm is a slave to RAS. So let me talk here just a few minutes about what we're doing in here right now. Right now. And that is, for the most part, where is my ink to go? I'm lost without it. Give me 1 second here. Got to find it. I have to get rid of it from the task manager and then go call it back up because it's hiding on me right now. Okay. Seems to be on another screen. So we've got this checkmate zone as I've drawn it, which is going to be the result of 3 potential forks that we've drawn. 1, an existing persisting fork, meaning it's continuing to define the channel very well. If we have a fork on our chart like that, we will most likely see a scan appear inside the fork, or at least elements and components of the scan appear inside that fork. This requires more skill because you have to have drawn a lot of forks to start to get a handle on which of the swings may or may not be the correct one in a run in order to draw such a fork. So it does require more skill. If you draw it, there's a good likelihood you're going to catch a scan just like a fly flying right into a spider web. It's a trap. All right, I'll do a 1 minute overview on RAS because I don't want the wrong ideas getting out there. So, RAS is the reticular activation system. It's a subsystem in our brain. Sometimes it's called the thalamic gateway because it starts from the hypothalamus. Sometimes it's known as the flight or fight mechanism. It's also part of what creates the differences in our ability to sleep and stay awake. What the RAS is you have to understand that as fantastic as our brain is, when it comes to sensory information, we have limitations on how much we can process at once. The bandwidth of information coming in is too great. And so the brain needs to know what of the information that's out there do I need to process at a given time. So your RAS does that job for you. It contacts the subconscious mind and it wants to know what its beliefs are. It wants to know what its dominant thoughts are. It wants to know what you've been focusing on because obviously if you're focusing on it, it's important to you. Now the RAS subconscious combination works as a crew to you. The conscious mind is captain of your own ship. And as I've said, it is the most loyal crew in the world. Whatever you give it an order to, it will execute on your behalf, and it executes it very well every time. So you have to be careful of what orders you give it because it will execute them. So this is why when a female in a couple relationship is back it up a little, 8 months pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, all of a sudden every other female you look around is pregnant. Not really, not in any more percentages than usual. It's just the pregnancy is on your mind, and so when your mind is looking around and it sees a pregnant woman, it says, this is one thing that this guy wants screened in, so I'm going to screen in this visual information, this picture of the pregnant lady versus the blue Volkswagen or the stoplight over there or the cloud in the sky. So the RAS is constantly scanning your data set in your subconscious mind, created by belief, created by focus, created by results. And then it goes to the information that's coming in, which is gazillions of times too much more than it can handle. And it screens out and filters in based on your subconscious mind. Now, that might sound all kind of interesting and all, or it may sound like a bunch of voodoo magic. The reality is it's biology, it's anatomy, it's how we function, and it's how we deal with sensory information. Most of the time, this kind of information, while it's vaguely available in the biology world, it's been studied very heavily in the last decade in the field of neuroscience. There's several gateways. There's pretty much 3 gateways, but the RAS works with the hypothalamus for the most dominant one. So what ends up happening as you do things, as you talk to yourself, with the results you get, you are programming your mind. You're programming your subconscious. And therefore, you're going to continue to get more and more of whatever it is you think about. That can work for you. That could work against you. And your subconscious mind and the RAS kind of work in the absolute. It's kind of the way law of attraction works. Somebody says, "Gee, I wish I could stop smoking." Well, see what happens when you say that is you are admitting that you smoke. And so your RAS gateway is going to find ways to keep you smoking because that's what you said you do. That's why you don't ask the universe for money. Because when you ask for money, you're admitting you don't have any, and what your absolute thinking registry is going to do in your subconscious, this guy doesn't have any money, he must want more of the same. So they go to work in order to assure that. They'll sabotage things that could be giving you information about how to make more money. So you don't want to have negative self-talk, and you don't want to do stuff that gets you in a perpetual loop that spirals you down or spirals you up. So I said 1 minute. That's the 3-minute explanation of RAS that you're going to have to live with for right now. I have many, many hours to teach on RAS, It's part of a program called the Law of Spirals, which I'll be bringing out sometime in early 2018, and I will probably share good pieces of that in this group. But RAS totally drives your trading. And I can see that as a coach now since 2004 with thousands and thousands and thousands of traders. I can see your RAS as reflected in your charts. That's why you want to submit charts so that RAS can be adjusted to work for you instead of against you. Most of the time, people don't even know what RAS is. If they don't even know what it is, how are they going to be able to improve it? So the technicals of, thanks Zoe, the technicals of what I teach are not hard. They're not rocket science. Implementing them requires RAS adjustment, but so does any other trading model. So it's not like something I do is unique. I just happen to share the fact that it exists, while sometimes other training programs won't do that. So let's talk back here to this checkmate zone. So what we've said is you have to have skill to draw this number one pitchfork. It's okay to practice it. I wouldn't be taking trades based on it just yet. You guys haven't had enough volume of trades, okay, for all of the little things to be worked out. And a lot of you have said, well, I draw pitchforks all day long, and yet I don't see but one of them or any of them. Is it done or has it not started? So, in terms of the checkmate zone, what we've talked about here lately with the Charlie Delta, which is just international alphabet for CD. The CD swing in a scan. The pin got stuck. The CD swing in a scan. All right, what's going on? I'll slow it down a little. Maybe I won't have those issues. Okay. So that CD swing, which is the strongest swing on your chart at a given moment. When you look left, there's nothing stronger than the D swing and the C right behind it. So basing a pitchfork on that CD swing is pretty easy. Making it traditional is pretty easy. So the Charlie Delta X-ray is the first place you should start after a scan has been painted and has reversed. So some common mistakes that I see going on right now. Pay attention, pay attention. This is common mistakes I see going on right now. Right in this area here. Is too many of you are trying to assume that because there's a D on the chart that the scan is finished and therefore you can draw a pitchfork. And then, oh my, the D moved. Well, you need to understand the IML harmonic scanner. That D is going to move not just eastbound like it should to always be above price. It's going to move up and down because that's the way the IML scanner works, regardless of where the entry line is. This is why for our trading after the scan, so not the one fork, but the 2 and 3 fork, and we're talking about the 3 right now first, the Charlie Delta. The Charlie Delta fork is after the scan has painted and we have some movement from D. Which means you cannot use the Charlie Delta pitchfork to enter a trade from the D. Is there any confusion by that? You cannot trade the CD fork until you've had price leave the D. And I don't mean by 2 pips. That's why the CD fork on the creation of the fork from D is not tradable as the CD pitchfork. Now, let me come back and reiterate what I've said before. IML has training on how to catch the D. No 2 candles. What if a candle's half a pip? What if a candle's 1 pip? I reviewed this last week. When is the scan considered successful? When is the scan considered successful? In terms of studies that have measured harmonic patterns, in those studies, they have to have a threshold to determine success or failure. What is the threshold for a harmonic scan being successful? Yes, we have to have at least 15% of movement from D. Then it's a successful scan. It doesn't mean it has to go farther than that. It doesn't mean it can't come back from there. Looking at this chart as I've drawn it, let's look. Well, we know right here with the pitchfork, that's about the 50% line. We know if I take half of that, that's 25. If I divide that into 5 segments, then 3 of them for 15 pips is right about, or 15% is right about there. So the fork is going to have to come down 15%. Now you can put 0.15 on a Fibonacci and actually see exactly where it is. You don't have to guess. I'm just showing you on a static document or a static graphic because I can't put a Fibonacci on here. So you'll have to use a Fibonacci to determine exactly where success is. That means what at that point in time? That means the D has been fixed. I'm not saying you have to wait until that 15% pullback to draw your CD fork. I'm just saying you can't act all surprised if after you draw it, the D moves until that 15% has been achieved. No, the pitchfork doesn't work because the D moved. I guess I better go trade old paradigm. It doesn't mean it has to go any farther than the 15%. It just means it went at least 15%. So don't be so anxious to be drawing your pitchfork. 15%, that's it. You have plenty of time to get here. Price could be coming along and moving along, moving along. You come, oh, look how far it's gone. Let me draw my CD pitchfork. Because you're not taking that trade with what we're doing right now. If you're taking that trade, you're doing it from other IML teaching. From Jed, from Justin, from Christopher Terry, from Michael and his quickfire. There's lots of different strategies you can use to trade the D if that's what you want to do. And they're all about trying to bring some precision so it's not guesswork. They're trying to lead you up to a scan that will at least move that 15%. Now, I'm not going to teach that in here right now. We may go back and cover that. The group of 10 is going to cover some things there because they're going to have a little bit more tools. But what you have right now is you're either taking the D trade by what somebody else has taught you, or you're using the scan to create two sets of forks, the CD and the XA. So what that means is I'm not going to see more conversation about the entry from your pitchfork at D in regards to the pitchfork. Does that make we're on the same page with that? Left, right, left, right. There's 4 of them. Well, I don't want to turn this into a mindset game. If you want some additional self-development reading, I would suggest you read up on a gentleman by the name of Noah St. John and talk particularly the code for success. And Noah St. John talks in terms of affirmations instead of affirmations, afformations, FOR instead of FIR. Because affirmations, instead of making a statement in the present tense, which is what everybody wants you to say, I am a millionaire, I have $10 million in the bank. Those are affirmations. An affirmation is asking the same, taking the context and making it a question. Because our minds like to respond to questions more so than statements. Our minds are, as I said, they're good self-serving crews, and they want to please us, so they will go to work to find the reasons. So instead of saying, I am a millionaire, it's, why am I a millionaire? Why are my trades so successful? Why do I always use a stop loss? Why am I sure I'm never late for Steve's sessions? So you want to take that same kind of affirmation, augmentino scroll-like question statement. Instead of stating it in the present tense, you ask a question of yourself. Why do I have such abundance in my life? Why do I have so much love in my life? So Noah St. John, affirmations. All right, enough on that for now. So there's no way with Charlie Delta trading that we're taking a trade from D. Only something else before that you would have another model teaching you how to take that trade. No, that's still saying in the present tense, Tim. I would come back and say, why am I so happy? Why am I so grateful? Always ask it as a question. No statements. It's got to be a question. Your mind serves and will take you to the right spot faster by asking it questions. Okay? So, let's look at this. No trades from D then. So I don't want to see any more comments and everybody asking, and well, how did you get in? I think you're supposed to wait 2 pips. No, you're supposed to do this. Oh, I didn't think you can do that. Well, yes, I can. Steve said that. No trades from D on a CD fork. The entire reason we're using this fork is because we want this to be set. And then there's no rush. There's a rush here trying to catch the D because the fork the scan isn't painted until we're 91% from C to D. So on a 15-minute scan, look out. Oh, by the way, quick poll question. How many of you who use what is mixing what with what? What is mixing the old paradigm with the new? I'm just saying there are things being taught to give you opportunity for the D trade. Some of them, I'm not going to editorialize on what I don't like, but there are strategies that are almost new paradigm because they use very short stops and they have very quick targets to get out. So it minimizes the mental game. And they're a pretty good percentage if you follow the system. We'll get into that later on. I'm not worried about that right now because I could give you 2 to 3 times the trades between the CD and the X-ray, sometimes as many as 4. And there's no reason for me to go here and try and teach something that's already being taught in other areas. I'm saying if you're in this class and you're with me, we're in the new paradigm, and as far as that's concerned, it starts at D and moves forward, but the D is not tradable. See, at this point, you've got to follow along. I've talked quite a bit over the weekend, well, from Friday through this morning, in some of the comments about desperation in trades. Desperation is a result of your RAS. Desperation is a sign of impatience. Desperation is a sign of wrong expectations. Desperation is a sign of lack of belief in what the CD fork does. And why do you have a lack of belief? Because you don't have the results yet, because you haven't been demo trading it. You've been trying to mix and match stuff. This isn't a group for beginner traders. This isn't a. You have to know things like support and resistance. You have to understand Fibonacci. You have to understand stop losses. You have to understand risk rewards. So this isn't a beginner's class. We have other stuff for that. We've got Forex 101. You've got IML Academy. So lots of stuff to get in there. I know people are coming in here because their friends are saying, "Hey, you got to go to this session," but it's not a beginner's group. Once you have your foundational information, come on back, and we'll put you then through the Pitchfork course, and then you could jump in these sessions, and things will start to make sense pretty quickly. Well, as I said, there are systems with the 15-minute chart with 10 pip stop losses. So there's a couple of good systems out there. But again, I don't understand the desperation. I don't understand the FOMA. I don't understand the mindset of, oh, this must be the last trade in the Forex ever, so I better get it while I can mindset. Because all that does, when you have desperation, you're telling your RAS, give me a trade, give me a trade, give me a trade. That's what desperation reeks of. And when you're saying give me a trade, what's your RAS going to do? It's going to give you one because it's a loyal crew. It doesn't care whether it's a good one or not. You just asked for a trade. All subconsciously. And so your crew will give it to you. So now you're out there taking trades with crap. You're taking trades with crappy criteria. You're getting crappy results. And the next thing you do is you're posting, oh, gee, I took 10 trades in a row and I didn't win any. As if, oh, this system doesn't work because me, the great trader, took trades and it didn't work. Versus, this is a system that has about an 85% success rate, tremendous risk reward. It's a profit builder like anything else. But you're sitting there, oh, I got to take this trade because it's the last trade ever. You're going to have to grow patience to be a successful trader. I don't care what system you're trading or what paradigm you're in. And the sad reality, the slower, more patient route is the fastest route. Let me say that again. The slower, more patient route is the fastest route to success. Now, you mix that up, unfortunately, with what 99% of the marketers out there try and do, marketers meaning the Forex market in general, anybody that sells education or training or models, is they sell, the quick results mindset. So we have to reprogram that. This is not the last trade in the Forex forever. There are many more behind it. Now I know there's such a thing as love at first sight, and sometimes one or both members of a couple meet and they end up living blissfully ever after. That's one in how many hundred, right? So let me ask a simple question from your own relationship experience. I'll move it away from the Forex. How many of you married the very first pertinent person that said, "Oh, you're cute"? The whole dating concept, the whole relationship building concept is a process of what? Learning what you don't like. It's not about learning what you like. That's pretty easy to satisfy. It's learning what you don't like. That's the way trading criteria is. You don't take the first trade that comes along that says, "Hey there, big boy, I think you want to trade me." You want to know your criteria. You want to know your criteria. And so when the trade is, playing its Barry White music, baby, oh baby, I'm the one you want to take. Trade me. I can't get as deep as Barry White. Most of you don't even know who Barry White is. So don't be seduced out of desperation. Don't be seduced out of desperation. And you say, "Well, I'm not desperate." If you're taking trades with sloppy criteria, you're being desperate. The proof's in the pudding. So we're in here, our new paradigm, the Scans, Forks, and Fibos group is in here not to add to everything else that's being taught at IML in the academy and in other IML TV sessions, but to bring something more, to add to what's already there. So all of that starts after this line. All right, so we kind of beat that to death. Let me move on because I got a few topics I want to get through tonight to get everybody on the right page. So we'll start seeing more scans and forks posted, and we could get through this selective criteria. It doesn't mean they're all still going to work. Most of them will. But we want to get through the selectivity criteria. So guess what? We can start looking at the market. No use me going to the market talking about various, scans if you guys are going to just take trades willy-nilly. Then I'm wasting my time. I want my time to be invested in you for good reason. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that same sense of FOMA and the reality of what we trade. Yeah. All pitchforks will not always yield the same trades for everybody. There's going to be variances for many reasons. One, your feed. So Zoe's feed might give her pitchforks that yield those trades. Tim's feed may give him pitchforks if I could draw. Like that. And so there is commonality. Maybe 80% of their forks will capture the same trades. Don't worry about these. Tim gets those, Zoe gets those. So don't freak out when so-and-so gets a trade and you didn't see it. Don't worry about it. Over 500 trades, Zoe and Tim will make the same amount of pips. Trust me. Hey guys, I got to do something. I'll be back in like 5 minutes. Just give me a second. I got to deal with something. Test, test. Sorry about that, guys. I've been dealing with an off and on flu, and I'm sitting here drawing circles and feeling extremely nauseous. And so I had to go take care of myself before I spewed all over my desk. Not to be rude and crude, but I do feel much better. So anyway, I apologize for that. I think that's the first time I've ever done that in a long, long time. So first of all, with what we're trading, it's not like a system where there is or is not a trade. A pitchfork may not yield a trade. We're also very precise. And so on best fits, when you extend the line out as the median and you are physically moving that line just microns up and down, you may create a gap here way downstream that you feel isn't safe to trade. Whereas on somebody else's chart, maybe they have it just perfect to where they get the touch. Don't worry about that. That's going to happen on a percentage of trades. But for the most part, we're going to be in this overlap zone where all of us get 75, 85% of the same trades. And the ones that are different, don't worry about them. Okay? Don't worry about it. Don't get all hyped up. See, that's when you sense that, this is where you need to have some self-awareness. Oh, what did I do wrong? Why don't I have that trade? That's part of the FOMA. That's part of this is the last trade ever in the Forex. Hey, you know what you do? Congratulations on that trade, Tim. Congratulations on that trade, Steven. Congratulations on that trade, Jimmy. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Say to yourself, hey, why do I catch so many pitchfork trades? Now you're programming your mind in the right direction. So don't worry about trades that you don't get. Also, in terms of trades that one takes and one doesn't take that are set up exactly the same way. Each one of us have a different risk aversion. Now again, the things I'm describing here are not unique to the new paradigm. This is unique in any trading realm. Some people who are now, it's just some of these problems are bigger in the old paradigm because the problems are harder to overcome. You get stopped out here, oh, whoop-de-doo, you got to make up 5 pips. You get stopped out on the old paradigm, it might be 150. And it's easier to make up 5 pips than it is to make up 150. So the psychological repercussions of what you trade also affect your future trading. Hey, no big deal. Just 5 pips. I can make that up in the next trade. Right? So let's not worry about it. So come to that realization. Let's get rid of that FOMA about, something being wrong, or, oh, gee, why didn't I get that one? Or, oh, gee, he's lucky, I'm not. All right, another thing happens is some of you are getting attached to the first scan fork that you draw. Now here comes the CAD yen, and there's a scan, and you draw an X-ray or a Charlie Delta X-ray on it, and you're emotionally attached to that fork. Make it the best you can. Go on and find some other forks. As time moves on, that CD fork for the CAD yen might not generate any good hits. Now we're back to the farmer sowing his seeds. Yes, fear of missing out. FOMA. Quit worrying about which seed's going to germinate. And some of you are in there trying to force a seed to germinate that doesn't have enough water, or is too close to the surface, been burnt out by the sun, or has already been picked up and carried off by a bird, or is just a dead seed. I don't care what you did to it. I don't care what green thumb you have. That seed ain't ever germinating. And some of you are babysitting forks like that. Why? Because you're RAS. Because you're desperate. because you have these unrealistic expectations that every fork is going to generate a trade, and every trade is going to make you $1 million. And if you don't get it, you're not going to make a success of the forex. Stop being emotionally attached. If it has great hits, then let's hold on to the fork. If it doesn't have great hits, there's nothing to trade. It's that simple. It's called selectivity. What happens when you take trades out of desperation? You're going to lose. What happens when you lose? You feel bad about yourself. And now, because you have weak RASs yet, you haven't fully developed them, that result creates a negative belief. The negative belief creates a result where you take less positive massive action. So, look, there's one thing to demo trade to practice. Some of you are newer and you're posting trades to get corrections on what you're doing. And, I will applaud all of you across the board at the 99.9% level, because I think some of you, all of you, most of you have been excellent at taking constructive criticism. That's the first place ego is invoked. And I think as a group, you've done a tremendous job there. And sometimes you have to realize as admins, we're tired, we're exhausted, we're given freely to the group. And we might not always just be the most diplomatic people on earth when we're offering constructive criticism. So first of all, nobody ever take anything personally. And you're to be congratulated by having enough ego control, i.e. you're not worried about being embarrassment by posting a trade. We've got people here listening that haven't posted a trade yet because their ego is in the way, their pride is in the way. They don't want to look like a fool making mistakes. They're trying to get it right, which is why they'll never succeed. You have to post so you can see what you're doing wrong. The new paradigm doesn't start you out saying, okay, you bought it Friday, let's go trade it Monday and see how much, and you're building your Excel spreadsheet to manage this and manage that and to see how many pips and when you're going to retire. You're trying to get it right. Yes, you want to get it right in terms of following the teaching you've been giving, but don't have an expectation of it being right. Have an expectation of it's okay to have made mistakes. That's why I'm posting. I want to get rid of my mistakes. The sooner you get rid of them, the better you are. My traders that have been with me for years, prior to IML, they've heard this 10,000 times, probably at least. I don't think I'm embellishing with that. Zoe will tell you. Stephen will tell you if he's here. Tim, Theo, Stephen, anybody, Neil, anybody else is here. I talked about my roommate at the Naval Academy. We'd get out on a Saturday night and we'd walk into a bar called Fran O'Brien's. And, before we even checked our hats, he's already making the move on some girl. They'd always have a small band or a DJ there. Dancing was very big. By the time we got our first round of drinks, he was already on his third or fourth effort to try and get by a girl a drink or ask her to dance. And every time he'd come back to the table, we'd shake our heads, nice try, Frank. And Frank would just smile. He'd sit down and say he had it worked out. He knew he had to get 7 no's before he got the yes. And we'd laugh at him. He'd end up laughing back at us. He says, just realize how much faster I'm going to get to that yes. You guys are trying to be all calculated and smart and coy and getting your courage up. And I'm just going through the numbers, man. It's a numbers game. How many of you watched the video on how to trade like a casino that I put out this weekend? Honestly, did you have a chance to see it, yes or no? Okay, so that video is all about the subtle difference in a game of chance and look how wealthy, look how abundant the casinos are on such slight odds. On such slight odds. But it's not the odds on you and your bet on the roulette wheel. It's not the odds on me and my bet at the roulette wheel. It's on the odds of 10,000 traders in that weekend, 10,000 players in that weekend. And then those odds get magnified because it's micro progression. It's the compounding effect. It's micro progression. Some of you need to watch that video and watch it and watch it and watch it over and over and over again. Which will tell you not to worry about the times you lose. Losing is a mental condition. In our game, we lose so little when we lose and we win big. In his presentation, it was a slight difference between winning and losing in terms of the risk reward. Just a little bit more loss than profit, which is high when it balances out over thousands of gamblers. The casinos are making millions and millions and millions. It was posted in the Scans, Forks, and Fibos group. So just look for the Trade Like a Casino video. I think that was maybe Saturday. No. Go to the group and find it. Why are you asking somebody else to go to the group and find it for you? Go to the group and find it yourself. I don't sit here and have links to 50,000 things floating around my room, and so I could just post a link. And other people will not either. But it's in the group. If you're not familiar with the group, that's okay. Understood. We're going to have a link, as Zoe said, posted at the end. All right, so don't worry about overlapping. Don't worry about what you get versus somebody else get. The majority of the time we'll be in the same trades. Emotional attachment to the fork. Just ditch it. Just ditch it. Draw more forks. That's the best way to train yourself. Keep going to outside analogies. Let me ask the girls this question. I always because I'm a guy, I always make the questions or the analogies guy-centric. Let me make this one girl-centric. Hey girls, if I said, and pretend you're single for a moment, whether you are or not, it's irrelevant. If I said, hey girls, I've got a blind date for you. And you said, well, describe them to me. And I described them to you. And you sit there and you go, maybe interesting, I don't know. How about I did that for 10 different guys? Here's how I think he looks. Here's his build. Here's his sense of humor. This is what he does for a job. This is what other girls have said about him. These are his hobbies. And I did that for 10 guys. Wouldn't it be cooler if you had to go on a blind date to pick the one that you like the most? So that's just the natural process of selectivity. Why take the first one that comes along? Now, if he's the dream date, obviously you should. But if there's stuff there that, still goes, I wonder, then put him in a little box, hold on to him. He may be the guy you want to go out with, but let's just hold on. Let's see what the other 10 look like and read like. So you don't want to be, now see, the difference is you get to see the criteria. And you got to quit forcing stuff and taking things out of context. Good example. Here's the top line of a pitchfork. And now let me use the median instead because it's a better example of what goes on. Ha. Messing with me. and price is doing this. And you're taking that trade. Well, Steve said if it hit the median line to the pip and pulled back 2 pips, I can take the trade. When I say price hits the median and pulls back 2 pips, this is what I'm talking about. Not this. This. Are we clear? I see this. I see people circle it. Oh, I took the trade entry here. And I've lost 5 out of 6. Go take this 6 times and come to me and tell me you missed 5 of them, and I'll quit teaching right now. That's not going to happen. This will happen frequently. This will not. It's the difference in criteria. One person says, oh, as long see their RAS is so desperate for a trade, the only thing they're measuring in a given time is that wick going up and hitting the median. They're forgetting all this stuff means look out, there's a lot of indecision here. This is an RAS adjustment. Somebody else was talking about the D, and price left the D and very quickly came up and challenged the fork again. That's not a trade I would be really interested in. It doesn't mean sometimes it won't go. It's just not a trade I'm interested in. It doesn't mean that the first guy's bio that I hear won't turn out to be Prince Charming. But your odds over a long stretch of trades or a long stretch of matchmaking, that's not going to work. It's not going to give you the best dating experience. You want to see 4, 5, 7, 10 guys' bios, honest ones, not ones that he wrote, but somebody else wrote about them. You know, that's not the kind of test that we call a retest. There's 2 kinds of things where we can say it's testing a line. And that would be you have some serious movement down and it comes up, a nice long wick, comes down, there's some movement, comes up, tests it again. Those are testing the line. The other test of a line would be like the median where price goes through it. I call them pass and check. It passes through it, it comes back up and checks it to the pip and then takes off. That is a super strong trade as well. Just like this would be. Just like this would be. This nonsense in here is not a trade. This is not a retest. And why are you so worried about trying to get this trade off the D anyway? Wait until you have some good movement out of D for the CD pitchfork. Because even with a CD X-ray being high percentage, there's plenty of times where you have to shift this a little and you won't know where that is until you've had 2 or 3 interactions with the top and the median. Quit being so desperate. That'll help you. That'll turn your iffy forks into winners. All right, what's all? Oh, this is so important. See, if you manage, here's the problem with this stuff, and I apologize for writing over it. So let me real quick. So this bounce here, here's the difference between that bounce, I'll call it 1 and 2. Remember how I said that if we go back to our main picture, remember how I said waiting for the D to prove itself, waiting for that scan to prove itself for what we're doing, okay? What we're doing is all this side of the D. That if that scan, if you wait for it to prove itself and you do the Charlie Delta X-ray, and sometimes you may have to wiggle this some once we get some data to see if maybe a best fit would be better if you're not seeing much with your traditional. That doesn't mean on the first bounce. It doesn't even mean on the second bounce. Let's see some things in here interact. You can use Fibonacci's for interaction points, but not to trade. Not on a 15-minute fork. Use them to help align the fork as time moves on. Don't align the fork based on 2 Fibonacci hits. We're looking for inside-outside, which means median and upper, or median and lower, or upper and lower. We're looking for 2 good hits to the pip on the fork to call it a best fit. But remember how I said if you do this, the reason this scan is so important, because it's really a pitchfork alert, is because this fork can deliver 2 to 3 trades. Now see, once again, some of you are hearing that, and that's all you select to hear, and you forget everything else, so you take it out of context. Let me ask you a question to see if this will bring it to focus. If I have 2 different forks, and one gives me this hit here, hit number 1, and the other fork gives me hit number 2, as it is, both of them run and approach the median, both of them hit it to the pip and bounce away, couple pips. Here's the difference between 1 and 2. Which fork number 1 or fork number 2, is going to give me better hits on warning lines? Which one is going to give me better hits with the fork Fibos? One or 2? We're almost done. Hang in there. See, this is very important, because a lot of you that are taking this trade at 1 will then mumble to yourself, I don't see what this thing is about warning lines. They never work. Well, I don't know about fork Fibos. They never hit anywhere close to the lines. Yeah, because your entire fork was based on crap criteria. Not that this wasn't a good bounce. The problem is what happened in front of it makes it less than favorable. See, what this bounce is luck. How did I know it wasn't going to wick through it? How did I know it wasn't going to be 3 pips short? The history in front of it was not consistent enough for this particular to the pip touch to mean much to me. And even if I take this, and even if it gives me 25 pips, that's probably all I'm going to get out of this fork. When it leaves the fork, I'm not going to get warning lines. When it leaves the fork, I'm not going to get fork Fibos. And that's too much to give up versus waiting for this fork with this trade, which will probably still give you the same 25 pips, but then bonuses you with additional pip opportunities. So in this case, being patient instead of impatient, not thinking this is the last trade in the Forex, not being desperate, actually will give you more trades and more pips than trying to make the quick buck and satisfy your FOMA by taking the very first bounce that comes along, only isolating that bounce without looking at the rest of what's happened in front of it. You can use a 10 pip stop loss if you want. I just said some of these may go. But in terms of percentages, number 2 is going to dwarf number 1. I'm not saying 1 won't give you that trade. I just said 1 may give you that trade. And if it's a to the pit bounce, I don't understand questioning the positioning of the stop loss, because you're going to get into trade number 1 and trade number 2 with the same stop loss. It bounced perfectly off the median in your trade. It's what happened before it that makes that less than predictive. And also, my bigger point was this is going to give you much less additional trades, because the warning lines aren't going to work on this kind of fork where there's that much indecision. Well, when I say won't work, they're not going to work anywhere near the percentage of times they will when everything in this fork is bouncing nicely. One singular approach, one singular departure. That fork's going to have hits elsewhere, be it in the fork, be it in the warning lines, be it in the Fibo, fork Fibo. Stop loss has nothing to do with this trade. Okay, so we talked a little bit about selectivity and criteria there, and how good forks are the ones that give you extra trades. Sloppy selectivity may give you some pips instantly, but you're not going to get anything else out of it. And that may is not like 80%. That may is like 15%, 20%, 10%. It's just not highly successful. We've talked about consolidation. Now, some of this stuff will actually supersede the fork. In other words, let's pretend this bottom line is the median. So we call this comes from our work with the 62 EMA, but it's equally true for the median, where price comes up and maybe bounces off, and then it goes over it, and then comes down and maybe bounces, and then it comes down and it bounces, and then goes over and it bounces. Real good recognition of the line. The trouble is that's not tradable. So we call that a DNA spiral, because it resembles the double helix of the DNA. It's just wrapping itself around the median. So there's nothing to trade there. There's nothing to trade there. Go for a fork that looks like this. And if you don't have one in your arsenal of forks that you've drawn, see, again, a lot of you are just being lazy. My son laughed his butt off the other day. I don't even remember what we were listening to. It might have been some human potential speaker, motivational guy, or it might have been something. I don't know where we heard it, but he was. I know where it was. We went to the Fresno County Fair, which is a huge county fair. It's bigger than most state fairs, and there was a guy, inside one of the big rooms, big buildings, big exhibition halls, where they have all the booths set up. There was a guy doing the typical cookware demonstration with, 2 rows of 10 seats out in front of him. He's got the microphone and the apron and the spotlight on him, and he's selling his cookware. And he was talking about, I don't care if you have, I don't remember all the things he was saying, tonsillitis or gastritis or whatever. And then his last one is, or if you have lazyitis. So some of you have lazyitis. Lazyitis is when you go to your scans for 15 minutes on your harmonic scanner site, and you get a fork and you get a scan and you draw a fork on it, and well, you're done. Because you got a fork you can now babysit. Yes, you can take a trade off a warning line, especially if that fork is giving you trades inside it. The warning line is no different than any of the parallels of the fork. That's why they're there. Absolutely take trades off warning lines. Um, no problem. Yeah, so if you have a fork Fibo on top of a warning line, that's called an energy point, as Tim's pointing out. Those have extreme high probabilities in it. There you go, Todd. Good forks equal good warning lines. Very good. Is what a take profit alert. Oh, if you have a bounce off a warning line, yeah. If I was in that trade and it's bouncing off a warning line, for the most part, you're going to be out of that trade. All right, let's finish up. Um, so we talked about DNA spirals. Okay. Oh, what is a DNA spiral? What do you guys think is happening? So, um, I explained why it's got its name, but let's talk about what it really is most of the time. So, yeah, most of the time, well, that's what I was explaining about the difference between a good fork and a bad fork in terms of its future probability of giving you good warning lines. They all have warning lines, it's just a matter of clicking on 1.5. The question is, you know, what makes a bad fork or what makes a particular bounce not good? I illustrated that. There's many hits. Some of them go, some of them don't. Even the ones that were perfect to the pip only pulled back 5 pips before they went back and challenged it again. Some were short, some went past it. And then you finally have a perfect hit. That's not a good hit. That's not the context of, oh, it hit the median and pulled back 2 pips because there were 12 of them right in front of it. It's an unreliable trade. It's not something you want. The one you want is the one that goes from the bottom and it works its way up. Yes, there's going to be pullbacks and retracements, but a singular attack to the median, a singular attack to the upper parallel, a singular attack to the lower parallel. Those are the ones you want to trade off the bounce. Those are the ones whose warning lines and fork fibos will be very good. You can trust them. If I have a see, it's good that you asked the question. I am not saying somebody asking you take a warning line bounces. The implied answer is you could take a warning line bounce off of a trade that has already had good hits inside of it, not sloppy hits. I'm not going to trust a warning line bounce on a fork that has sloppy hits inside because that warning line is based on that same fork. This is just common logic. There's a law of association. The warning lines are attached to the fork. Don't think of them as something separate. They're part of that fork. So if I have a fork that has sloppy criteria, even when sometime in there eventually there's, here's a good example of that I see posted several times each day. And I have to, I'll use red and down. No. Also got to draw it correctly. So. This is not a hit that I want to trade. And if I were to draw it like they show it most of the time, that is not a hit I want to trade. Oh, Steve, it's to the pip bounce. That's all you said. To the pip, 2 pips, be in there. Now that warning line should have sucked the candle in front of it down. Now that median should have sucked the candle's wick in front of it down. That median line should have stopped the 2 candles to the left instead of going past it. This is a random trade. Don't let your RAS to say, oh, a bounce to the pip and 2 pips pullback, that's a trade. That is not a trade. I can't be more clear on this. This is so simple. Wicks and sticks. Well, I'll say this. Well, how can I throw heads 7 times in a row? You guys could do what you want. I make recommendations. I'm not an investment advisor, but I've been trading pitchforks for over a decade. I want to say thousands. It's probably in the tens of thousands. Because with as many pitchforks as I trade, 60-minute, 30-minute, 4-hour, 15-minute, multiple pairs every day, I'm multiple thousands a year in pitchfork. So I'm just telling you what the percentages work out. If you want to trade trades like this all day long, go ahead. But when your account goes south and when your mindset goes south because you hit tails, there's a difference. See, I didn't invent the pitchfork and I didn't start trading it 2 weeks ago. No, that's not testing a level. That's indecision. First of all, wicks are something we don't want to trade. I don't care where the hell they hit. That's not something you want to trade. wicks on both sides is massive indecision. That's not testing anything with sincerity that you can trade with any kind of consistency. Oh, well, maybe. Thank you if that's the correction. I thought the inference was I'm taking those trades and I'm catching so many pips. My bad. And thank you for saying affirmation. That's really good. But that's not testing a resistance level. That's a lot of indecision. If it is testing a resistance level, there's a lot of indecision. None of those are testing anything with the same result. So it's as if that line isn't there as far as I'm concerned. So let's go back to the DNA spiral that I was starting to draw. And a lot of you said that's a consolidation. In terms of what you see, now we're going to test the advanced traders. In terms of what you see, there's two things that could be, isn't it? Hey, somebody post the Facebook link, because if people don't want to stay and learn and they want to leave, that's fine. They might have some scheduled event. So here's the problem with this DNA. This could be one of two things. Both of them would not be good. It's just things in different directions. So there's the Facebook group. All you do is cut and paste that, go do a search for that, and you'll find our group. Request to join it. You will be asked 3 questions. Complete the questions. That's the Pitchfork class, and there's the Facebook group. All right, so what this can be to the advanced traders, this could be a larger downward move, and this essentially is the 2-3 move. In which case, this would be what? What move would this be? If that's the 2-3 move going down, what would this be? Advanced traders. Elliott wave term speaking. You guys don't have to notice. Yeah, it's the 4th. That's the 4. Now, my traders who've been around, what is the nickname for wave 4? Some of you are going to go, what? What's the nickname for wave 4? Zoe, Tim, you still around? Yeah, it is the 4th Elliott wave, but what is wave 4 called? It's got a nickname. Yeah, it's a corrective 4, but what is it called in terms of... I'm looking for a special thing in well, not going to chew up time. The 4th wave is referred to as the Banks wave. And it appropriately got its name because the banks are going to win there and you're not. So sometime through here, if this was the correct Elliott wave structure, which is another whole nother gig about getting the structure right and the count right, if this is a 4 wave from a 2-3, correcting back to the 4, we're going to expect this to move on down like that. Well, what if at a smaller scale, there was stuff in here we didn't necessarily see or pay attention to, like maybe there was one of these kinds of things. Oops, a little thicker. And in reality, at a smaller level, this was X, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. There's our 4-wave consolidation for which this will be 4, and it's going out this way. Yeah, wave 4 is called the Banks wave. It's in my Elliott wave course. So, guess what? Unless you're like Prechter or can't think of the Australian guy's name. Slips my mind right now. He has a modified Elliott wave that he trades. Jeez, can't think of his name. Unless you're one of those two guys, it's pretty hard to determine which way this is going, which is why taking a bounce trade off that DNA spiral is very dangerous. Because your RAS is going to convince you, I'm a consolidation expert here. I know what's going on. That's consolidating. Yeah, well, hopefully you got some other data because right now it's too unpredictable as to which way it's going. It might be a larger level consolidation coming down. It might be a smaller level consolidation going up. And you won't know what it is until it's all over. It's another reason why you don't want to mess with DNA spirals, because of that bank wave. So, two more things. Just one quick reminder, and this will take 30 seconds. Don't forget the lesson or the session where we talked about 5 pips. Be it trade per day. Let's talk in terms of day. The easier it is to achieve that net means not taking sloppy criteria, so you're making up -5, -4, -3. I get one trade, it goes 7 pips. Let's not be greedy, especially in terms of your RAS. You need to walk away at that point and come back later. Why are you so desperate? Why do you think the next trade is going to be the last one in the forex and you have to have it? Well, your RAS, your ego is telling you that. Oh, look at that. I just nailed 8 pips just like that, man. I must be the master trader. Let me jump back on here. So you might have had a little luck in your trade. Doesn't matter whether it was skill or luck. Your ego sees it as you, the almighty trader, who can do no wrong. And that's why when you come back and take the next trade after scoring pips, a lot of times, traders mess up and then their ego is now really challenged because, oh, gee, I thought I knew what I was doing. Oh, gee, I was 5 pips up, and now with that -6 trade, I'm now -1. I better take another trade and at least get it positive. Now your RAS is, here's your RAS is focus in one thing, and now you come over here. Now your RAS is here as far as what it's seeing and not seeing, and now your RAS is here, and you notice something about this. What you want is your RAS in one trade to look like that. That's the field of view. Out of everything out here, that's its field of view. And the next trade you take, you want your RAS to look like that. And the next trade you take, you want your RAS to look like that. That's what gives you trading consistency. The reason traders end up being inconsistent is because their RAS is showing them something different every time they're trading. And you want to go, and my goal is to take you from here to here. It's about your RAS adjustment. But if you're constantly doing things in a rogue way, if you're not following what we're doing, if you're getting greedy, if you're getting desperate, if you got FOMO going, every time you sit down, your RAS is going to have a little bit of different look. Sometimes it's big differences. And that little bit of difference is all it takes. All you need is 5 pips. What we showed with that 5 pip in the pip income calculator, 26 trading days a month, 5 pips in 24 months, $2.8 million. if nothing was taken out of the account. See, somewhere along the line, there's a belief that this is possible, but then there's a disbelief that this could be achieved. And the difference between the two is not hypothetical. That's the actual math. 26 days a month, 5 pips a day, 24 months, $2.8 million. So why is this believable and this not? A lot of RAS. But guess what happens if you don't believe something? There's little chance of it happening. So you don't need more than this. Say the guy's going for 10 pips a day because 5 isn't enough. You know, this isn't just twice the amount. That's not just $5.6 million because that gets compounded. The difference between that 5 and 10, this number would be in billions. With 2% into a 10 pip stop loss, and you're getting 10 pips a trade or 10 pips a day, it literally jumps from 2.8 million to literally billions of dollars. But it's like, for some reason, you don't believe that 2.8 is possible, but you believe 5 is, and yet you're trying to double up on the 5. If you didn't believe 2.8 million was possible, how do you believe billions is possible? Why are you going for the 10? Because you don't think 5 is enough? I'm not saying leave money on the table. We trade percentages of risk. We don't trade lot size. You got it all backwards. You trade risk and trade. No, it's not. Yeah. Starting account, $5,000. Correct. We trade risk and trade. 2%, 1 to 2. I don't want to go 2 to 3. I wouldn't recommend 2 to 3. I'm not an investment advisor, just recommending. All right, so I got an indicator for you to try on your web scanner. It does a pretty good job. You know, I've got other tools that do better that are proprietary, but this does a pretty good job. And so, you know, you could throw it on your web scanner or your TradingView charts and see what you get out of it. And I'll give you the quickie on it. So it's kind of combining two things. The indicator is called stochastic RSI. In terms of your indicators, there she is right there. Alphabetically, stochastic RSI. Once you put her on the charts, the settings are 3 for the RSI, 8 for the stochastics, 3 for the K, and 3 for the D. I don't care about old paradigm. I don't care what other traders have done for you. I've spent the last 10 years looking at turnaround indicators and tuning them. And I'm telling you, with what's available inside the web scanner, which is a stripped down version of TradingView, this is the best thing you're going to find. Not RSI, not MACD, but the stochastic RSI. It's putting a stochastics on the RSI. And it's a short-term RSI to begin with. The second thing in your settings is to change your oversold and overbought lines from 80-20 or 70-30 to 89-11. Now, there's reasons for that. I'm not going to go into that right now. That's where you want them. And so the flip of that wave at a given time is going to give you a good read. The only problem is what? What's the problem with any indicator on the chart when you're looking at it in history? What's the problem with any indicator? And we're here we are real time. What's the problem in looking at any indicator in history? The problem in looking at an indicator in history is that when you're looking at something with wicks, you're actually seeing a high value. When you look at that on the chart, what you're seeing is a closed value. So those of you who do things like divergence, you need to be aware of this. That is incorrect to call this the high on a candle that looks like this. The actual RSI stochastics, or RSI or MACD or whatever you're using, is significantly higher because of that wick. And the bigger the wick, the more you're using this is faulty. So you may rule out trades that are divergent and don't look it, or you may call trades you call trades divergent that are not. But the problem with historical information is the wick is a high or a low, and you're using closed data for the indicator. Now, in terms of those that want to use divergence, I would recommend you be on TradingView, and therefore when you're moving up to the top, you go to whatever indicator you are, and what you'll see on TradingView is, instead of this being set like this as it is, which you don't even see, it'll give you options for closed, for high, for low, etc. So if I'm talking about price moving up, I'm going to want my indicator to be plotted based on the high value of that candle, not the close value, the high, because then I'll see the value that the wick actually generated. Likewise, on a move down on my TradingView charts for stochastics, for MACD, for RSI, I want to switch to the indicator being based on the low value. So I'll see exactly where the indicator was at the bottom of that wick. I'll see exactly where the indicator was at the bottom of that wick. And when I do it on highs, I'll see exactly where the indicator should be based on that high. The scanner version of TradingView will not give you that ability. It only plots the closed value. So now you have an unrealistic representation of the actual plot versus the candle. And if that doesn't make sense, watch this video again. So anyway, this is a really good indicator. It's a confirmation indicator. It's not something I would just put on and blindly trade. And because it's based on short cycle, you're going to have a lot of stuff that are not major swings. But the overbought and oversold and the flip of the K and the D will occur on a major flip. Above and below, above the 89 and below the 11. And so it'll really bring some help for those that want to have additional help on their trades. So I'm going to close with that, unless there are any questions. Any general questions? I think everybody's posted the Facebook group. 89 and 11. And it's because of how we have this tune very tight. This is for good, tight turnarounds. And you can't use 80-20 and you can't use 70-30. Any other questions? So much for my get out of here in an hour. All right, so we covered a lot of information tonight. I'm kind of setting the path now so you can be a little bit more selective in your trades. Thank you, Zoe. There's a Facebook group. And I want to start seeing some of these CD and XA trades being posted. Got to step it up here. Because until we get further along, you know, I'm not prepared to go to live market and look at stuff if you can't trade what's already there simplistically. You know, why look at the live market when you can't draw pitchforks yet? So let's work on our pitchforks on the CD. Let's watch, implement what I said about taking trades. Singular approach to the wave. That's going to be your best fork. Not multiple hits that are hit or miss, hit or miss, hit or miss, and then you get one that hits and your RAS is so out of whack. No, it's been a little more stable today. It still has a hard time with pitchforks. Well, not as bad as it was last week, but not as clean as it could be. All right, I'm going to say goodnight. Y'all have a good session, a good time. I will catch you Wednesday. And as always, if there's people you care and love, let them know you care and love them, guys. I'll see you in Facebook land.